Welcome to News from the Crabby Coffee Shop with your hosts, Don McLean from Jason and Alexis in the Morning on My Talk 1071, Garage Logic's newsman, Mr. FYI, John Haidt, and the crabbiest guy in the coffee shop, Kenny Olson.
Ross, if you know what a crossfade is, do it now. Not bad.
Yeah,
Good
nice.
job, Ross.
If I knew how long this ramp was, I'd walk right up to the vocals and kiss the post.
You know, I spun some music on some FM dials back in my day.
All right, pipe down.
Don, good morning.
Good morning.
John, hi.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are
Our
you?
guest today, we've been talking about having Gene on for a couple of hundred years, and we finally did it. And Gene Hollister of Rose Presents is our only guest for the entire 2-hour show this morning.
2 hours.
Wow.
Hi, Gene.
I'm not going to lie,
Hey.
Kenny. I thought you've been lying for a year because you'd always say, hey, next week, let's get Gene.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, great, Kenny. Okay, we'll wait.
Gene, I've been talking about you behind your back to John Haidt for years and years and years about rock shows and artists and guitars and et cetera. I'm glad you two finally get a chance to meet. But it sounds like John is already familiar with your band, Rhinestone Diplomats.
Yeah, well, he had reviewed one of the records for Vintage Guitar Magazine, and that was the first one we put out, I think, that he reviewed. So, yeah, thank you, John, for doing
Oh,
that. We appreciate
you're
it.
welcome. I remember it, and it was a while ago.
Yep.
I want
Yeah.
this. I don't want this show to turn into Kenny and Gene stories. Because Gene and I have known each other since, I think it was 84.
He doesn't want you to reveal any dirt about him.
Yeah, let's not reveal any dirt about each other, Gene.
It was certainly the early 80s, 82, 83, something like that.
Do you remember the day
No,
we
he
met?
doesn't.
I still remember the day we met.
He doesn't remember the 80s, no.
This day, for some reason, I do remember we were both working at Acme Electronics.
Yep.
Acme.
Yeah, Acme Electronics, owned by Dick Atlas. Kitty Corner. Yeah, I know. That's a hell of a name, isn't it?
God, yeah.
Yeah,
He,
make it
he
up.
put dicks on the map.
Yeah. Atlas Dick.
Yeah.
Kitty Corner from, what's that restaurant, the blue one? J.D. Hoyt's.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I was wearing a Detonators T-shirt, which was a band from Fergus Falls, and Gene goes, "Oh, hey, I was in that band." And I'm like, "No, you weren't." And he goes, "No, really, I was in that band." And as it turns out, you were in an early formation of the Detonators along with the Hermie Brothers.
Yep.
And they
Those were
went
the
on.
First guys I played in the band with were Paul and Chuck. Yep.
And they moved down here. They started the Phones, and then the Phones collapsed years later, and they started Mile One.
Well, I thought they started Mile One up in Fergus.
Oh. Yeah, here we go telling Kenny and Gene stories.
Yeah, what's up
Kenny's
with this?
revisionist
No, we're
history.
telling Mile One stories. Paul and Chuck Hermie stories.
How did you end up at Rose Presents? I remember it was sometime in the 80s, maybe late 80s. I think you spent a few years on the couch doing nefarious things.
Well, in
yeah.
1985,
Okay.
I think it was 85, I started with Midwest Ticket, which was Randy's company at the time. That was the ticketing company that he owned along with Rose Presents. And Randy used to be Schoen Productions way back.
Oh, right.
Sure,
Schoen,
yeah.
Schoen.
S-C-H-O-N.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, so I started in 85 or whatever with the ticketing company. And then when Ticketmaster came into the market, they bought out
Everyone.
Midwest Ticket, and I just went to the promoter side working with Randy and a guy named Roger Clevisol who's passed away. But I was their assistant, and then when Roger went to Kansas City around 1990 or 91, I think he was going to offer me a job, but I just stayed here in Minneapolis, and Randy and I kind of became partners at that point. So that's when I started with Rand. Well, that's when I started on the promoter side of things anyway.
Okay.
I don't know what to
So
ask.
you didn't really introduce him to people who don't know who he is.
This is Gene, my buddy Gene, and that's all you need to know. Oh, you know what? If you're a frequent concert goer in the Twin Cities, or if you go to a lot of bars, I know you've seen Gene and you've probably talked to him, and you've done one hell of a lot of acts in the Twin Cities, from big, giant 3-day shows to tiny little bar shows. You've done it all.
Yeah, I mean, I've everything from the Stones and U2 and Pink Floyd to Trapped or something. American Head Charge. Some small stuff at small stuff at Urban Wildlife and First Avenue and Caboose and all the way up to the stadiums. And then we did do festivals. We did. A couple of years we did Riverfest. The last 2 years that it ran in 1989 and 90, we were Riverfest.
There are a lot of acts.
And there's a lot that I probably have forgotten about now. I used to remember all of them, and now there's just so many that have gone through my brain that I can probably figure out all of them that I've done in the past. But yeah, quite a few anyway.
Riverfest was when I moved here in '88. At Riverfest for the first couple of years was my heaven. Because you could go there and see everybody.
I think that's where I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan for the first time.
I remember he was there. I saw him there. Yep.
I think he played in '89 and '90, and then shortly thereafter, I think it was a month after Riverfest in 1990 that the helicopter crash happened.
From Alpine Valley?
Yeah, it was Alpine Valley.
In Wisconsin, yeah.
I remember I saw him and Jeff Beck also at the Guthrie.
Oh, I was at that show.
Not the Guthrie, Northrop, at Northrop.
Yeah.
And I remember it was great because we were sitting underneath the balcony and we could feel little pebbles of things coming down on us. We thought, oh no, the whole thing's going to collapse on us.
What? Oh my gosh.
It was loud.
They had the B-52s there once, and parts of the balcony were falling.
I was at that show, too, Gene.
Oh, no.
Gene, actually, I think the first show you and I went to, you made me go, and I think it was at the Northrop. It was with Paul Smith, who at the time was the sound engineer for Urban Gorillas, and it was Frank Zappa. Was that?
Yep.
Yeah, and that was at the Northrop.
Yeah, I talked to Paul about that this summer, actually. I saw him in Duluth because he was running sound for the Jayhawks. He used to tour with them, and he still does select shows with them. But
can I ask? My name's Dawn, and part of my life, I used to be an event producer, and I worked for a company that toured with Ozfest for a couple of years.
This is it, Dawn.
Right.
We were there that night.
Oh, right. Okay,
All three of us.
1999, 2000. Those are the years that I ran around with Ozfest for a couple of summers. And I don't know. I want to ask, what is the process of booking a band? How does that work?
Oh, yeah.
Can you like, from the inception of the beginning of that, and also in addition to that, what was the first band that you alone were in charge of booking?
Oh boy, I probably don't remember that one right off.
Oh, you don't? Oh.
But I know, a lot. It works in a few different ways. Sometimes the agents will call you. Sometimes you have a relationship with the management. Sometimes, like I think in the case of let's say Lilith Fair that we did. I mean, we had the experience promoting outdoor festivals, right? My business partner Randy was the WeFest guy for 30 years or something like that, and we did just a ton of outdoor festivals. So, the agents and management all had their confidence in us to produce and to produce and sell the show, promote it properly, and once in a while there's a thing where you wind up finding a band that you really like, just out of the blue, because you heard them somewhere, and so you wind up contacting the agent and telling them how much you like the band and how much you want to promote them, and sometimes you get the show and sometimes you don't. And I promoted Disturbed quite a bit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That was one where they didn't even have a record deal when I first promoted them. And
really?
they were the first band of 3 at Ryan's Corner, or whatever. Maybe it was Station 4 by then, but
downtown St. Paul, right?
Yep. So they had
Yeah.
a couple of different names over the years, and probably a couple of different owners. Because I know Tom Ryan owned it, and then he sold it, and then it went to Station 4 and the Lab. But I had known the manager of the band because the previous band that he worked with was a band called Mind Bomb. And
never heard of them.
I had him here in town, and I had him up in Detroit Lakes because we used to do a July 4th thing up in Detroit Lakes.
Yeah.
It was a rock event.
Yeah.
And so Jeff Battaglia was the manager of Disturbed, and he called me and said, "Hey, can we get him into Minneapolis?" And I said, "Sure." So we put him on first and 3, and they flattened the other 2 bands. They were really good.
Of course.
And then they got a record deal like a week later.
Oh.
They had been working on it, but a couple of those I just got involved before they even were very well known at all. Now
That's got to be fulfilling.
Well, it's great, if you can help a band like that and
Yeah.
bring them along and if you can keep working with them over the years. And it gets tougher and tougher to do that because of, the Live Nations. They'll offer an entire tour to a band.
Sure.
And so you get cut out of the deal. And,
Right.
and it happened, occasionally, like in the case of the Eagles or Steely Dan or something like that. They were both Irving Azoff acts. And we had a relationship with Irving, and he would say, "Okay, you guys get one Eagles show on this tour." Or you get one Steely Dan date on this tour. Where do you want to do it? And so we got to do a few of those shows just because of those relationships too.
Okay, so that's one way of doing it, but I remember getting calls from you in the 90s asking me my opinion on certain bands because you were doing something, and I might be wording it wrong, but you were bidding on them? Is that the correct way?
Yeah, you make an offer, to the agent, and that's why I say sometimes, if the money isn't right and somebody's willing, we did a lot of stuff with White Zombie and then Rob Zombie afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And the first time they played, it was Roy Wilkins Auditorium for White Zombie, and we had an offer in, and so did Jam Company 7 were tied together. But another promoter had an offer in, and they were going to sell the show to the other promoter, and we said, no, well, let's do this, because we believed in the band, that they would grow and become bigger. So we upped our offer quite a bit, and, we got the show, and we wound up working with them for quite a while, and that relationship kind of led to, I managed Flip for a little while, too, and they won the Warm Up to Zombie contest, which was an MTV contest.
Oh, that's how they got that gig.
Well, yeah, and that's, so we basically,
I thought their success was solely because of you, Gene. I really did.
Well, no,
because they played some really big shows.
Yeah, they were a good band. And they're still around and they're still playing and doing shows. And we had them on 93 X Fest or Edge Fest or whatever it was at the time.
Yeah.
They wound up getting on MTV. It wasn't even related to the contest. They just, they were whatever, the Kurt Loder and the MTV Music News, they showed Flip on it. And but we wound up getting the Warm Up the Zombie gig, winning that. And when I talked to Rob, he said, well, we had a whole lot of, Panteras, and we had a whole lot of whatever. And then there was Flip, because we had to submit a video to the contest. Mm-hmm. And they picked us, or they picked Flip. So that was great. We got to go to Detroit and play with White Zombie, the Ramones, and the Super Suckers. Mm. And they asked us, do you want to go on between the Super Suckers and the Ramones, or between the Ramones and White Zombie? And I think our comment was, it's Detroit. If we go on between the Ramones and White Zombie, we'll get killed.
Yes, it's so true. Gosh.
Gene, at this point, you're almost always dealing at that point with agents, correct? With the band's agent, you're never dealing with at that point musicians, and the musicians are basically just relying on their agents to handle all of that for them. I'm assuming.
Yeah, and for the most part, you deal with the agents and the managers, and really the agents are supposed to be that conduit between the promoter and the band and management. And there is you do get to know bands and be friendly with them, and Crash Test Dummies I've promoted since God knows, their first time they played the State Theater, I think, so
weren't they just here, Gene? Weren't they just weren't Crash Test Dummies just here?
They were here back in February, and they're coming back again in March.
Okay.
I saw them at the Fine Line back when Cities was playing the hell out of those records. I saw them play the Fine Line.
Yeah.
Gene,
those guys even mentioned on stage, which was kind of flattering, that we've been working with Gene since the first time we came here, and this is one of their bigger markets, even though they never reached a level of an arena, but they were doing solid theater business, and they're a good band. I was even a little bit. I was at the last show. I was sitting in the office at the Fitzgerald, and they piped the music into the office, and I was surprised. Not surprised. I mean, I just didn't realize how much tongue-in-cheek stuff they had. How kind of humorous some of their lyrics are. But they're super nice people, and it's nice to have relationships like that. So.
Gene, tell Dawn. I think it's the Greg Allman T-shirt story.
Oh.
So we did the Allman Brothers with Hootie and the Blowfish opening, and this is for a Thanksgiving show, I think, for KQRS.
Yeah.
And so there's a few stories from that night, but anyway.
Oh my gosh!
Just the T-shirt story, Gene. Just the T-shirt story.
The T-shirt story. So the T-shirt story was. I was wearing a Stax Records T-shirt that I had gotten in Memphis when I was traveling down there, and I wore it that night. And I came out of our production office, and I pretty much ran smack into Greg. And he looked at me, and he goes, "Stax Records." He goes, "I gotta have it. Trade you." And I looked, it was a white T-shirt, and I always tell this story. It's like, it's a white T-shirt. I'm just going to spill barbecue sauce on it anyway. So, and it's Greg Allman. So I went, sure. So I take off my shirt. I take off my shirt, and then he starts taking off his shirt, which was an old Harley Davidson T-shirt from somewhere. And I realized that he had just gotten off stage.
Oh my God, this is every fangirl's dream. Are you kidding me?
He'd gotten off stage, and the shirt is sweaty, and it's November.
Of course. Right? They would have never washed it.
Well, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm sitting there, and I don't have another shirt. So I actually went into the office, and I had a leather jacket on, and this is kind of a sidebar story. So I put on my leather jacket with no shirt, and I walked out in the hallway, and
What's up, guys?
I looked down the hallway to one of the security guys, and I go, "They call me Fabio."
What's up, Fabio? Why are you shirtless with a leather jacket on? Excellent.
Right, exactly. Yep.
You're like, because I don't want to wear a sweaty shirt. Wow, that's cool.
Gene, Dawn, go ahead, Gene.
Eventually, like Randy, my business partner, tends to dress in layers, so he took off one of his shirts and gave it to me to wear the rest of the night.
I swear to God, I saw Randy one night dressed up as Gene Simmons at a Kiss concert. Was I hallucinating, or did that really happen?
Oh, boy.
I don't know. He dressed as a hobo once and came out to a show that we were doing with Kiss, but he was dressed like a hobo.
Wow.
And, but anyway, so Bert Holman, who was the manager of the Allman Brothers, goes, "Well, why did you do that?" And I said, "Well, it was a white shirt. I'll spill barbecue sauce on it. And it was Greg Allman, so I just traded him, right?" And he goes, "Well, he's just going to give it away to some girl in 2 days." And I said,
See? That's fantastic.
I don't care, And so, like, I don't know. It was right around the opening of the Rock Hall of Fame. You know, they did the first. They did like an opening concert that had the Allman Brothers on it.
Yeah.
And Greg's wearing my shirt.
Sweet.
Oh,
Nice.
that's cool.
Nice.
And then he's on Letterman, and he's wearing my shirt.
Wow.
Yeah,
Did you
and
say,
there's
that's my shirt?
And there's some pictures of they have a book out called, I think it's La Brea or something like that. There was Kirk West, who was their tour manager, took photos through all this time, and so there's a couple of photos in that book of Greg wearing my shirt at the rehearsals for the Letterman thing and
What?
that kind of thing. So I thought, oh, that's cool. He never got rid of it, or he didn't get rid of it in 2 weeks like Bert thought he was. But
That's so funny. Oh, man. So what part of the process when it comes to, at this point, well, even back then, that pisses you off the most?
Oh, here we go.
When you're trying to book a band, or, I mean, I'm assuming money, or...
It's got to be Live Nation. Those guys are bastards.
well,
Don't get me started.
I mean, it's tough to compete against the behemoths like
Yeah.
that now as an independent promoter, because they are buying all the dates. And yeah, money is sometimes an issue. You know, the bands, think they're worth, well, it's kind of, this is kind of a stab at them in a way, but bands think they're worth more tickets than they're actually worth, or, and you don't want to lose money. I'm not in it to lose money. I'm trying to get enough people out to see the band. The promoters are the last ones that are paid.
Sure.
You have to pay the band, you have to pay the sound alarm, you have to pay the security, you have to pay the venue rental. There's a whole list of different expenses, that vary, whether it's a club show to a outdoor festival. But, the promoters are the last ones to get any money. So if the show doesn't do well, I'm out of pocket, whatever the loss is. And if it does well, then I make some money. And, in that case, sometimes the bands make more because they're on, they get bonuses sometimes. It just depends upon the deal, right? But they'll get a bonus, but that's the thing that pisses me off the most. I think is it's actually kind of frustrating now because there's a lot of junior agents, and I don't do as much calling around and talking to agents, and I don't book as many shows as I used to. So every once in a while, you get a junior agent or a new agent, and I have to explain to them, no, we were part of Michael Cole's company. I didn't just fall off the beat truck. We know what we're doing. We've done these shows. We were the only ones to do Ozfest and the Warp Tour together on the same day.
Yeah.
And
really? Wait a minute. Warp Tour was downtown St. Paul, right?
The Warp Tour used to play. The first Warp Tour played at Midway Stadium.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then we had it at the Metrodome parking lot for a few years. And we'd had it on Harriet Island one year.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, Harriet Island. So you had Ozfest in the Dome and then Warp Tours?
No, we had Ozfest in Somerset, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
At the Apple River Amphitheater.
Oh, my God, that's such a big... I love that amphitheater.
He did 1 million shows there.
I mean, that is the largest outdoor amphitheater in the United States. Well, are they still running, or...?
I don't know.
No, they are.
I know they closed down for a bit.
They haven't done a ton of shows, but it got, the original owners sold it to the family that also owns the WeFest property. But we did Ozfest and the Warp Tour the same day it ran concurrently. They were both shows happened, and it was all one ticket.
How did that work, Gene? Were you at one and Randy at the other?
No, it was just the one site, right?
Oh, my gosh.
Gotcha. Wow, what a cluster.
That's crazy. Oh, my gosh.
So we did 40,000 people or something like that at that show, and it was great. I mean, we actually get the honor of saying that we did them both at the same venue on the same day on the same ticket, which was pretty cool.
What year was that? Do you remember?
No,
Yeah.
19, I don't remember.
No.
Yeah, I
Take a
get it.
guess.
No, I get it. I
You
get
can't
it.
talk to Gene during a show. I have never seen a guy more busy than Hollister.
Yeah, he's running
talking
around,
to three
yeah.
people in front of him, and then he's got this microphone hanging off his T-shirt, and he's talking to them. He's putting out fires. He's paying people. He's hiring people. It's you're a busy guy on show days, Gene.
Yeah, I got a little bit of ground to cover, and then I have to settle the show generally with the artist or whatever it is.
Did you, Gene? You talked about Riverfest? Were you guys responsible for the Bob Dylan, Steve Earle show that must have had 8 billion people at it? Do you remember that one?
I know we had Bob Dylan one year at Riverfest. We had.
It was. I was a mile away.
Gene,
Closest you
kind
could
of
get.
backstage to go over there. I remember having, Stevie Ray, because I was a big Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, and Albert Collins and Robin Trower and the Spinners and Dr. John, I think we had, and God, it blends together a little bit now.
Van Morrison. I saw Van Morrison there with Mose Allison. That was great.
I don't think we were part of the year that Van Morrison was there,
Oh,
but I could be wrong. We had Chuck Berry there. Chuck Berry.
All kind of blends together.
Speaking of Chuck Berry, I have to tell one Kenny and Gene story. We decided at the last minute, and God, I have no idea what the year was, that we were going to go to Blues Fest in Chicago. And we got in, I think it was Jeff Blexrud's tiny little Mustang. The whole back end was filled with a subwoofer. We drove down to Chicago. We slept in a park.
Because the back seat had a subwoofer in it.
We didn't get a hotel. We slept in a park right next to Lake Michigan. But, Gene, do you remember the big act that we saw that was playing? It was Chuck Berry and Keith Richards.
Yeah, Chuck Berry, and then Keith Richards came out.
Yeah.
And, I think Muddy Waters was. I went to a couple of years of that, too.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's unbelievable.
Well, we had Pine Top Perkins on just a flatbed trailer on which they called a side stage.
Right.
There was 200,000 people in the park. We didn't know. We went pretty naively because we didn't.
Yeah, very.
We thought we were going to camp in Grant Park, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so we didn't have a hotel, like Kenny said, and we drove up along Lakeshore Drive and
You're like,
up into
where?
Evanston and Wilmette or whatever.
Yeah, we're just total rubes, Don. Total rubes.
Yeah, we turned around and the street was Chestnut Street. I remember that.
What?
And we had turned around and the car was facing this park that was next to an apartment building. It was probably about a mile north of Northwestern College.
Yeah.
And there's this little park with like a playground set in it, and there was a fence line and some trees, and I said, let's see what's behind there. And we walked over there, and there was about a 15 by 15 foot clearing, right on Lake Michigan.
Yeah, but it was up in the air. It was like a little cliff.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So
what time of year was this?
It's
June.
July.
Okay, good.
June or July.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they did it like July 8th, or right around that time.
And we slept outside, Don, like pioneers
Or
mountain men.
homeless.
Yeah, our homeless people. Hobos.
So I noticed that you have a selective memory. You can remember that it was June 8th and you turned on Chestnut Street, but you don't remember what year the Warped and Ozfest tour was.
Yeah, but you got to understand that there's a lot of...
No criticism.
We did Ozfest for a few years, and we did, Warped Tour for 20 years or whatever it was, and so remember it was more than 2 weeks ago. But I remember certain things about it. And, we did camp right on the lake shore. All weekend long we camped there.
Yeah.
We actually had a tent though. I remember.
Oh, did we? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did.
So my memory's the same.
No, that's all right. But yeah, it was great, and I still talk to people, and I have friends from Chicago, and even the Disturbed guys are from Chicago, and I think I was telling them one time, and it was like, I know exactly where that spot is.
Oh my Lord!
All I remember is that subwoofer thumping the whole way down and the whole way back.
Gosh, you got to keep awake somehow.
You also, in addition to, I've got to guess, you've probably promoted about 5,000 shows or more, right? Yeah, it's got to be way up there, right?
Yeah, I haven't. I've lost count.
Yeah.
You know.
But not only do you do that, you've got a pretty cool Henry Rollins story and a Rolling Stones birthday party story.
Well, the Rollins story was I was doing a spoken word show with him at Ted Mann, and I picked him up from the airport, and I was the promoter and whatever. I was the guy for the day, right? And by the time we hit the airport doors, we were both talking about like Mississippi Fred McDowell, who's an old blues artist, and Henry had a record label and a book like publishing thing going on.
Yeah.
So he published the Led Zeppelin book, but he was putting out like Mississippi Fred McDowell from the Mayfair Hotel, and he was a big blues and jazz fan. So
Yeah.
we started talking about blues and jazz guys that we liked, and I said, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to your hotel, or do you want to... And he goes, let's go get breakfast. So we went and had breakfast, and then we wound up driving around because I said, what do you want to do? Do you want to just hang out here? Do you want to go to bookstores? What do you want to do? And he goes, let's go to bookstores. So we drove around Minneapolis and St. Paul, hitting different bookstores, and just chatting. And we went by the Metrodome. There was a Gopher game that day. And he goes, what's going on here? And I said, the Gophers are playing today. And he goes, the Gophers? I said, yeah, the college football team, in the spirit of all ferocious animals, lions, tigers. and so, and he had a laugh, and we joked about a couple other things. And then that night he just talked about which I was surprised at, but he talked about us driving around that day a little bit, the spoken word performance and seeing that. And,
Nice.
and then the Rolling Stones thing was there was a time when Randy, he did it a few times. I think there was an Aerosmith one. There was probably an AC/DC one. Those are before my time. But we had a bowling party because the Stones were in town.
Wasn't it? It was Mick's birthday, I think, because you invited me, and I said, nah, I don't stay at home and watch TV.
It could have been. I mean,
Yeah,
but
I think it was Mick's birthday, Gene.
Oh my God.
yeah, that could be. I don't remember the year or the date.
Okay.
Nor do I.
No. So,
Right.
so
No,
can you recall like a time where you just sat back and thought, I'm really lucky to be seeing this right now?
That's my next question.
There's so many times that there's one in. There's so many times, but there's one in particular, which we talked about Stevie Ray being at Riverfest.
Yeah.
And it was 1990, like I said, about a month before he died.
Yeah.
And I was standing on the side of the stage with a buddy, and Stevie was playing Voodoo Child.
Yeah.
And he came over, and he was, 10 feet away from us. We were just off on the wings, but he was 10 feet away, and he's in the middle of Voodoo Child, and he looks over and he sees us. And he gives us this little nod and smile, in the middle of the song. And I still kind of get, tingles thinking about that, because it was just such a great moment. And I've had times where I haven't done it a lot, but there was a couple of people that I sat down with and just said that, I talked to for a while. Al Jardine was one. Bill Cosby was one.
Cosby? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so Cosby we did in Rochester. This is before all the bad news.
Well, yeah, right.
And we were in his dressing room for about 2 hours talking about music and medicine and him going to Temple University and why he didn't go into sports and who his influences were as comedians and just all kinds of. It was just esoteric in a way because we touched on so many different things, and so then Al Jardine was out with Brian Wilson, and I sat down with Al, and I told him the story about sitting with Bill Cosby, and he had the same reaction that you guys kind of did. Is like, really, Cosby? I said, yeah, but and asking him what what his influences were, and he said, I was a big folk guy, right? Like I was into the Kingsmen and
Kingsmen.
Ick.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And I asked him, again, not being fanboy or anything, because I wasn't. I was just like, okay, so what was your favorite era of being in the Beach Boys? And he said, oh, probably being in the studio with Brian back in the 60s, although they kind of had a resurgence in their popularity around 1980.
Right, definitely.
And
yeah, Kokomo, right?
Point,
it was that Kokomo song.
Yeah, I think so. And so then he said, no, we had an airplane, so then we could fly to all the gigs, right? And he goes, and so that was a pretty great time too. And so it was, there are just those little moments that you get with an artist that are cool. I mean, Bette Midler was one who was. We had Bette at Northrop, and it was the first date on her tour, and she was rehearsing. And I think Randy was out of town at the time, or just coming back to town. And he said, well, just go down and say hi and make sure everything's going well for them. I said, okay. So I got to Northrop, and I'm walking down the aisle, and Bette looks up and she goes, who are you? You weren't here 10 years ago. And I said, no, I'm Gene. I'm Randy's guy. I just came down to say hi and see how things were going. And she goes, oh, hi. She's very cordial. And, we had the show there, and then maybe a year or two later, she played at Target Center, and I was standing on the side of the stage when she was about to go on, and she turned and looked at me and kind of did a double take and said, oh, hi, how are you? Nice to see you again. It was like, wow, what a memory.
Yeah.
I was quite impressed.
And you were like, who are you again?
Yeah, I should have. Like, wait, are you? How did you get up here? But,
I do.
No, it was. I was just impressed by her memory too at that point. How cordial she was, and there's a few of those artists that are just great with people and their fans. Dolly Parton's another one who's just great with her fans, and
she's everything they say she is, right? She's just super awesome. Yeah, great gal.
We did 9 dates with her a few years ago, all through the Midwest, and I had Tim Sparks opening up the shows.
Nice.
Wow.
So Tim and I would drive city to city. We were in Chicago on Tim's birthday, and he bought John will like this. He bought a 1928 L.O. Gibson or something, or L1 Gibson.
Okay, yeah.
And nice guitar, but it was on his birthday that he bought it. And no, she was she'd do meet and greets with the fans afterwards and take pictures with them. She was, very nice. And at the time, she had more of a rock and roll crew. Not all the, I'm sure she had a country crew at one point, and I say rock crew because most of the guys. The tour manager is a friend, and she had been out with like Tool and Slayer before.
Yeah,
and
really?
Now she's working with Dolly.
Sure, yeah.
Huh.
Wow.
So we did that show, or we did those shows, and her security guy at the time used to be our furniture guy here in Minneapolis. So if we had to rent furniture for a show,
right.
We'd call up Danny. And a guy named Danny Nozell, and he would bring couches and lamps and whatever we needed, right, to the venues.
For the green rooms.
For the green room.
Right.
And then he wound up being Slipknot's tour manager in the beginning. And there's a brutal story there, but I won't go into that now. But
good.
But Danny wound up being security for Dolly on all these dates. So, we'd do the show. Danny and I would have a production meeting afterwards, per se. Some people in the know would know what I mean by that.
I think I know what you mean by that, Gene. Yeah.
Yeah, you might.
Yeah.
So then we go on to the next city, and now Danny is managing Dolly. He's her manager.
Wow, you're furniture guy.
Holy moly. Yeah.
That's
right.
cool.
He's done well for himself.
Is there I got to ask you, Gene, because everybody wants to know. You talked about the green room. The thing about riders for the green room, do they get as weird as people actually say they do, or people just ask for normal stuff?
They tend to ask for normal stuff, but every once in a while, people will put on things on the rider. Stuff that you go, boy, I'm not getting that. I mean, we don't.
Sure.
we don't buy socks. We don't buy underwear. We don't buy.
Yeah. Jeez.
But if you cross it out, then they know you've read it.
Right.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Yeah, we're denying your underwear request. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I'm not buying underwear for you guys. What do you think? I don't have. I need underwear myself. So
Throw in some for yourself.
Gene, the first time
that was an extra package. Sorry.
The first time I was ever backstage at a show, Gene, it wasn't your show, but I'm pretty sure you're the one that got us back there. It was for ZZ Top at Target Center.
Yep.
Do you remember being backstage at that show?
Yep.
And the whole band was there, and they were the most chill, laid back, friendly guys you would ever. If they didn't have beards, you'd have no idea that they were big, huge, stars. And you're still you're still buddies with them, right, Gene?
Well, I'm buddies with their tour manager, who used to work for CPI, which was Michael Cole's company back in the day. And so I've known Dwayne for since the 80s or early 90s. And this year when they were in town, we had them out in Wayzata last year.
Yeah.
Outdoors, and I've had him in Somerset, Wisconsin. We had him with Leonard Skinner, I think, out there. And then, so this year, Dwayne came in, and he likes to go play golf, especially on their days off. There's a lot of guys that like to play golf, Alice Cooper, and I was supposed to go out with Frank Beard and Dwayne and their production manager. And it wound up just being Dwayne and I, and then Frank Beard's two kids who are out on tour with him now. So we went and played golf and had a great time. And
Frank was the friendliest all of them. His wife was there, and for some reason he cracked up at every single thing I said. It was really, really bizarre.
Marijuana.
No, I don't think so at that time. Maybe, but that's where I met Mother Mary. Is she still around?
Mary's still around. She's not doing. She was our masseuse for years. She'd come out and be, if the artist needed a massage or some of the crew guys or whatever, it was common to have a masseuse on hand to do these things.
No, Don is giving me the look. And seriously, Don, I'm standing there, and for some reason I was rubbing my shoulder. I had and all of a sudden these two magical hands come up behind me. And it's like, this is what it's like backstage? This is awesome.
If I were famous, the first thing before a cook, a driver, whatever, I would hire a masseuse. Yeah. I'm serious. That is like, plus, quite honestly, they put their bodies through a lot whenever they're on stage. I mean, that's like a workout. And you're tense, you're sleeping in a bunk on a tour bus, and you need a masseuse, I think.
And their crew guys would use her.
Absolutely.
So I saw her this year. I hadn't seen her for quite a while. And so she's not as mobile as she used to be. And so she goes, I can't really carry my table. And, and so she goes, I still do things once in a while, but I really need a lot of help to get here to there and that kind of thing. But she was great. And she's still around. I was surprised I wasn't surprised to see her. I guess I was just surprised to see her in the context that I ran into her, because our neighbor had an art exhibit, and we were invited to the art exhibit, and she was there too, and apparently she knew Pam, the neighbor, and there was a few other people that were from like V Corp, who used to do the Ice Follies or the Ice Capades or something, and forgive me if I really got that wrong, but I know it was some of those, Disney, I don't know if it was Disney on Ice or who knows, but it was, they were another production company that did, events at Target Center, and
there's so many people behind the scenes that you guys know. It must be like a big family, like a big act comes into town. And, you call Mother Mary, you get the crew set up, right? The local load in, load out crew. Catering and security. Our guys at Asia and Asia, it's a security company in town, Don. And it's kind of the same faces at every show, right, Gene? Backstage wise,
a lot of the same ones, and you wind up seeing, like I said, Dolly's tour manager was out with Slayer and out with Tool and other, and so you wind up. There's a lot of people that I have met over the years that are touring people, because it really is kind of a small group of people, even though there's a lot of them out there. But it still kind of winds up being kind of a small family of people that are touring people, whether they're guitar techs or the production managers or the drum techs or the sound guy or whatever representing the band. And Tommy Thayer, who is now, well, for lack of a better term, Ace Frehley and Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy was in bands before I met him, but I met him when he was just being like Kiss's concierge per se. I mean, he was their handler. So if you needed something, Tommy would be shuffling them to meet and greets, and he'd be doing whatever he had to do as part of his job with Kiss. And then when they needed a guy to be Ace, he wound up getting the job. So
so incredible.
Johnny Lang, he hired mostly local guys. I mean, we both know Linda and Mike that go out on the road with Johnny all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Mike's been out with I think Tab Benoit lately, and but he did like the Experience Hendrix tour where they had Mitch Mitchell and the later Billy Cox, and then they'd take out like Eric Johnson or whoever, as they take out 3 or 4 different guitar players, and there was a night of Hendrix, but it was an Experience Hendrix evening. But he's worked with a lot of bands. There's a guy, Takumi, who is a guitar tech, and he's been out with AC/DC. He was with Prince for a long time and kind of Prince's guy. So he was Prince's driver and his guitar tech. And
gosh,
so,
that's funny.
I mean, he didn't. I mean, Prince was kind of like, he didn't like to be around. It didn't seem like he liked to be around a lot of people.
No.
Yeah, once you find somebody that you find loyal, I'm sure, or somebody that you can trust, they become part of your inner circle, and some people don't have a wide net for that.
That'd be me.
Yeah.
I'd only hire friends.
It's true.
Speaking of Prince, Gene Ross is wrapping us up. It's already been an hour. But speaking of Prince, where does the Miles Davis show figure on your list of highlights of favorite concerts?
That was awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I was blown away, and you and I went to that show, and it was like, it was stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, it was such a great show that night, and I mean,
him and for me, it was Miles and Tom Waits, the two highlights of my life.
Great show,
great.
Tom Waits.
Yeah, I mean, being able to, I mean, I've been lucky enough to meet, Albert Collins, Albert King, Stevie Ray, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck.
Cool.
And so those are, meeting some of my guitar heroes is really a highlight for me too, and having been part of, being able to book them or being able to just even hang out. Rory Gallagher, I mean, he was one of my big,
nice.
back when Kenny and I were in a band.
Yeah. We played Rory Gallagher songs. Yeah. And the worst part about your job, and you don't have to say it, I'll say it for you, is all your friends. Because anytime an act is announced, we all call each other.
Oh, right.
We're all texting each other.
Your best friends
Is it a Gene show? Is it a Gene show? Yeah, it's a Gene show. Oh, good. And then we all get on the phone and say, Gene, old friend.
Oh, yeah.
Can you, Gene?
Hook us up with tickets or, I know. You hear from people, like when we were doing the Stones or just even, people that you hadn't heard from in 5 years. So they're like, hey, man,
hey, old pal.
Maybe I could get your number, Gene.
Yeah, might promise you a better review or something. I don't know. We broker
Somebody
this.
there has it anyway. So.
All right, Gene. It's been absolutely delightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
It's
Really
been
appreciate
so
it.
great to
No,
hear your
it's fun.
stories.
I'm glad we
It's
got
wonderful.
to finally do this after 200 years.
Yeah. So I'll leave you alone from now on. I'll probably talk to you in a couple of years, Gene.
You need to make more contact so it's not so creepy when you need tickets,
Yeah.
okay?
Exactly.
Let's not kid ourselves.
Well, if
A show's
there's
coming to
something
town
we
you'll
haven't
need.
talked about, maybe we can do it again sometime.
Cool. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
It'd be great,
We'd
yeah.
love to
Cool.
have you on again. Thank you so much.
All
No
right.
problem. Thank
See you,
you.
Gene.
Thanks, Gene.
Okay, so before we go here, we've got to change the open of this show
Why?
because it says Dawn from the Jason and
Oh,
Alexis
God. Yeah,
show.
Amy. Why did she even do
Oh,
that?
I don't want to put work into production.
Give us the announcement so all the if you
Oh.
don't listen to my talk, but you
Sure.
love Don McLean, give
Yeah,
us the
so
info.
I am, first of all, staying with the Crabby Coffee Shop. I'm not leaving.
Good.
This morning I was like, listen, they asked me if I still wanted to do it, and I'm like, I can't let go of Kenny. I just can't, because he's our traffic guy in the morning, and then I just couldn't think of not having Kenny in my life. It happened for a while, and I cried so hard the day that he left. So, and of course, Ross, you and John, I have loved doing the show. I know last week or a couple of weeks ago, I was such a biatch and complained. I'm like, sponsor this show or I'm out of here. It's not true. I'm not leaving. Not that you'd care, but I love doing this show. It's so fun because it's just.
Well,
it is. So.
Ross will never pass up an open microphone, so we can't put any stock in anything he says.
Not at all.
But John and I hate doing this show when you're not here. We
I was
hate
going
it.
to say,
You
if
do?
Dawn's gone, we pretty much have
you
no
guys.
show. The
So-
show's over.
Yeah, so I am going to be hosting the noon to 3 show on My Talk with Bradley Traynor. So it is The Adventures of Bradley and Dawn from noon to 3.
On my talk.
And I have been doing mornings for 22 years. And so for the first time in 22 years, I won't have to wake up at 4 a.m. So hello!
There we
Praise
go.
God for that.
You thought she brought energy to the show prior.
Yeah, I'll be more awake, maybe less bitchy, not sure. So
Congratulations! I'm so happy for you.
it's exciting to
And
start something new.
if you ever find yourself leaving this station or this market, you're going to have to take me with.
Absolutely, in my contract.
I'm going with. Ross, let's hit that music and get out of here. And as it's playing, I just want to tell everybody about DK Mags on Old 8 in New Brighton. They're a full-service gun shop with a wide selection of pistols, revolvers, ammo, accessories, everything you need. And if you have a specific firearm in mind, special orders, no problem. At DK Mags, they'll be more than happy to help you track down and then purchase that firearm or accessory you need. DK Mags, they also buy firearms, single units up to entire estates. That's okay. Bring it up, Ross. I don't care. Check out their website, dkmags.com. They're on Old 8 in New Brighton and Monticello Pawn and Gun, dkmags.com. Here's the Rhinestone Diplomats taking us home.
Want me to stay. Scream. You want it all to end.